Welcome, everybody, to another amazing episode of the Game Informer Show. This is the show where we inform you about games. My host is Ben Reeves. Boy, it's been a day. I'm your host, Ben Reeves. Joining with me today is Brian Shea.
Hello.
Also, we have Alex Van Aken.
Hello.
And my host is Dan Tack.
Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody out there in Game Informer land? Great to see you all. It's great to be here, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. We're not going to redo the intro. We love it here. We love it as is.
Authentic.
Exactly. We're authentic people, and we want you to know that. We love our video games, so you can trust us.
Yes.
We don't redo intros. We have a cool show for you today. Not a ton of games to talk about, but I think the few ones we are going to talk about are big enough to warrant a larger discussion. We're going to talk about new Pokémon Snap and Returnal, both pretty great games that we just put the reviews up on. And then we'll take a little bit of a break before emails to talk about the new Mortal Kombat movie. Just kind of share some of our thoughts and tell you whether or not you should watch it. So stay tuned for that. But first, let's jump into the playlist like we always do. Dan, do you want to go first?
I'd love to.
Great.
Hi, Ben.
Brian, what have you been playing?
Now that Dan has expressed interest, just pull it away from him. Now
Yeah.
he's all excited.
That's how
Well,
the show is always wild.
You
Dan,
never know
why-
what you're going to get.
You never know. We're authentic. That's right. Dan,
We don't redo intros.
you've been playing Returnal.
I have. I've been playing a lot of Returnal. This is a game by Housemarque. My first game I've ever played by Housemarque. I'll tell you, playing this game has made me interested in their other titles. This is an awesome game.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect. Again, I didn't come from any history with the studio, so I really
they've
had no idea going in.
Traditionally done a lot of I guess you could call them arcade-like games. They weren't obviously in arcades, but very like sort of shooter, twin stick shooter type stuff.
Yeah.
You could
Resogun,
definitely-
Nex Machina.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that all comes out in this again with the roguelike structure, which I've played many a roguelike in my day. This one really just does great atmosphere, great music, incredible combat, tight action. Like, what can I say? This game's great. Like,
It seems like they're taking their penchant for arcade shooter action stuff and just putting it in a behind the shoulders shooter gameplay. Does that seem accurate?
Yeah, that seems really accurate. Like, you're not often looking, you're not paying attention to the fact that you're shooting. You're shooting all the time, right? As long as there's an enemy on the screen. But you're more paying attention on dodging the hundreds, potentially, of projectiles that are coming at you. And figuring out a way to do that. But there's also you're also very focused on, it's not really puzzles, but exploration is a big part of the game too, to make sure that you can get big enough to take on some of the bosses. Because the first time you try them, it's like, no. It's got that, it's like, wow, there's no way I'm going to knock off 3 health bars in multiple phases off this boss. It's just not going to happen. But it will. Stick with it. Bang your head against the wall a little bit and learn. It's really about like figuring out how to glean every advantage you can from the environment, from the rooms, every encounter. Perfection. The game really wants you to become perfect. It never wants you to get hit. It rewards you for not getting hit.
Mhm.
Not just outside of like, not having as much health because you don't have to restore the health or anything, but like there's an adrenaline system. So if you're not getting hit and you're killing stuff, you're getting more stuff. Every system in the game is sort of designed to make you better at it or to make you want to play better at it and to master it.
It's essentially like a combo multiplier. Like,
Sure.
You kill this chain of enemies without getting hit, we reward you this level, and then you do it again, you get another thing, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And
Is there a cover system?
No cover. You're
Just straight up action shooter.
You're going to be
dodging
jumping
stuff?
and dashing. And the dash is probably the most important of the two, but the jump is also very important.
Mhm.
But early in the game, you could probably survive every encounter by just dashing at the right time. You get invulnerability on that. People who are familiar with iframes and stuff like that you're invincible while you're in most of the dash. So that's your go-to move. You just want to make sure that when you pick where you're going to be, when you're done with the dash, is also a safe location. And then later on in the game, you're going to have to do jumping and dashing and maybe some other cool traversal things at the same time. And that's when things get really interesting. And then, again, it's been spoken of before. They've made bullet hell games before. Not all of the encounters are going to be bullet hell-like. Some of them are more curated and sort of You have to figure out how to beat this thing. But the boss fights, some of those phases are very intense. So many objects, that you've got to manage at the same time. And sometimes you're like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna get hit here, and that's life. And you can't do that too much. Your health is you're pretty frail, but over the course of a run, you can beef yourself up pretty significantly, and that's up to you. This game, you can spend a long time on a run if you want to, and get really beefed up. But that investment can all go away. I've said before, like it was just like while I was playing it, you can lose 3 hours and 3 seconds. That's obviously that's a corner case scenario, but that's certainly potential. That could happen. If you're trying to get big for a boss, like you can try to skip to bosses once you've got areas and checkpoints unlocked in theory, but you just won't be beefy enough to handle them unless there's going to be some like pro speedrunners who tear this game apart, right? And just rip it to shreds. That's not you. That's not me. And that's not 99.9% of the people that are playing it. So when I talk about the game, I'm not talking about John Speedrunner, who's like, yeah, man, I totally didn't get hit for like 3 hours and I totally destroyed that game. It's not going to be a 3-hour game for you. It's going to be 20, 30, 40 hours probably. And there's more after that as well.
Wow. You mentioned checkpoints and like things you can unlock that make it, shortcuts, let's say. Do you also unlock new weapons? Is there anything else you carry over from one run to the next?
So you don't carry over the weapon, but you do carry over the weapon unlock. So if you find a cool new weapon on a playthrough, that weapon can now spawn in all of your weapon pool, right? So you find like this thing that shoots electronic pylons, which I mentioned in an article you can check out on GameInformer.com. This thing sort of forms like a route. Like I shoot one here, and it puts a laser beam between the two. This weapon's like, you can get really creative with this weapon. You can create all kinds of like laser beam traps for enemies. That's something you'll unlock. Or maybe, the rocket launcher or the grenade launcher, stuff like that. Those will appear in your pool on every run.
And Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, as you use those weapons, you unlock permanent traits for those weapons in later playthroughs. Is that correct?
So I find a lot of people talking about this game on the internet are confused about how this works. Your weapon proficiency, the weapon power, that resets every game. But the traits, which are like, these are basically really minor effects, but they can have a big impact. Those stay unlocked and can roll on your weapons in the future once you unlock them. So they're like mods.
What does proficiency mean? That's just the level.
That's how strong your gun's going to be. So when you
that
start a new game,
as you play, and then resets every time you die.
Run to run.
You got it. So you start at proficiency 1 every run. Well, that's not entirely true either, but I don't want to. there might be some other checkpoint in the game where you don't start at 1 anymore.
Okay.
But yes, in general, you're going back to 0 on proficiency every run. And you're keeping the mods unlocked. But again, you have to have those roll on your new finds. Now, the Metroidvania stuff that you find all stays. So you find a grappling hook. And I don't know how much I also want to get into these because this is a game about discovery. So I don't want to talk about every one of these things that you discover. But there are multiple Metroidvania sort of suit attachments or body attachments that let you interact with the environment in new ways. You keep those forever once you get them. And they're very helpful. Let's say you go to a later area, you get this big unlock. You breathe a sigh of relief every time. You're like, okay, I got this thing. I never need to do that again. I have this thing forever. And going forward, I can interact with room X, room Y, and room Z in new ways. Because you've seen these rooms. You've been like, all right, yep, there's that grappling spot that I can't get to. Still looking at me.
Taunting me.
It's been like 10 hours. Still can't get up there.
Hey,
or it's been like 15 hours and I can't get down in this other area. Or how the heck do I get past that thing? You will find a way. And you'll be like, yeah. And that's like a new thing in your arsenal. So you may not be explicitly stronger, but you're now getting access to new power-ups in rooms you couldn't before. So
that sounds fun. It sounds like
a
third-person Dark Souls with like bullet hell shooting.
I knew somebody was going to mention that.
Right?
I can't, honestly, with the themes being so horrific in this game, and they don't really. I'm really glad that some of the previews have not gone into what you see later in the game. This is a horror game. In the same respect that like Bloodborne is a horror game, right? Horror is there, but it's not the crux of everything. So we will see Souls comparisons and Bloodborne comparisons in terms of both theme and difficulty, I think.
I didn't realize it was a horror game. That's news. Like it has some kind of like sci-fi aesthetic, and I guess some of the trailers maybe a little creepy, but
it's a sci-fi horror game. It's a sci-fi horror game.
Like it's like there's straight up points where you get scared, jump scares, and
no jump scares, but atmospheric tension. Man, does this game ever
Yeah.
ratchet it up?
I like raised my hand really high in the air to like review this game for the video purposes to capture our gameplay. I was all excited, and then I got to a quote horror sequence, and I was like, I've made a mistake. Like I should not have, because I am a big baby. But yeah, like Dan said, it's atmospheric stuff. It's like definitely like I got chills at one point because of like all of the audio going on in this certain section. But I haven't. Yeah, I would say I'm a big baby when it comes to horror games, but it's at a level where I can appreciate it, but it's not like hindering me from like continuing the playthrough. So if there's people out there who are worried about that,
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not trying to like compare. It's not like a Resident Evil kind of horror,
no,
right? But there's this thematically. This is a horror game.
Yeah.
Right. That is the backdrop, sci-fi horror explicitly, which is sort of a rare genre, And I got to tell you, the soundtrack is done by the guy who did the Midsummer soundtrack. I don't know if you've seen Midsummer. It's a daytime horror movie.
Yeah. I didn't realize it's the same guy.
It's a movie about tension ratcheting up as that movie goes on, right? And that is done masterfully in this game. There are points in that game where I am just like, you're not scared, but boy, anxiety, right? And it feels weird to say that that's a good thing, right? But it is in the course of the game, right? It's like, again, here we go back to the Souls comparison. It's putting pressure on you. It's putting tension on you. It's putting anxiety on you. And then the feeling of triumph and relief that come. The relief, the exertion that happens during one of those big boss fights. There are several of those of just big boss fights that are multi-phase encounter, multiple health bars. They do different things. And they're very clever about the way that different other aspects of the game sink into those battles, which is another thing From Software is great at, like musical transitions with phase transitions of the bosses. One of the fights in particular, and it's not even like the late game fight. There's one in the middle of the game that I thought was just masterstroke boss fight.
Wow, that's exciting.
That one in particular, because it's sort of tied. Again, I'm not going to go into any spoilers. I would not rob people of that discovery.
No,
but it's sort of synced up to the whole theme of the zone, and it's just like, ooh, baby. Like,
do you throw your fist in the air when you beat a boss, Dan? What's your expression like? When you
for
beat
one boss in this game? I did. I had what I call adrenaline trembles after the fight. I find that happens with me for the long fights. Like I basically went into this fight with a pea shooter against this boss, and his health pool was very large health pool. Okay, bullet sponge. But that's because my weapon wasn't that great. I could have gotten more mods and more traits as I worked through the game. You can get the traits up to tier 3 apparently. I only ever got like one tier 2 trait on one gun in my playthrough. I didn't have to go that long. But you will eventually keep getting stronger and stronger weaponry. Again, it's subtle. It's subtle power. But it is some sort of progression for when you're getting slammed constantly. And you will get slammed constantly. But anyway, this boss was a long fight. I don't even remember how long. But more than 5 minutes with my little popper. And when I was done, I did put the controller down. It was sweaty controller syndrome. And I had adrenaline shakes because it was such an intense fight for so long. Got multi-phased. And, just when I thought, I was like, okay, you get one phase down, you're calm, you're moving around, every bullet transition seamlessly. You're not dodging, you're jumping, you're going through things. And then all of a sudden, next phase. And all of a sudden there's a billion things flying at you that you're not ready to handle because you haven't seen it before. And that's always the point where the game can beat you just by the sheer surprise of not knowing, right? You really have to like mentally be like, all right, focus up. I'm going to get hit here, but only get hit once, because otherwise you can just crumble in a second. Like this game is wild in that way. You can be doing great on a run, and then you can just like make one mistake, and that will bleed into another mistake, and then it's it. You're dead. You're done.
I've had some heartbreaking ends to my runs. One in particular, it was only in like, I think it was the first area, but it was one of the larger, like as you go, you can get like, it's like larger rooms that are higher difficulty, that have more enemies and spawn like more like mid bosses or like, and yeah, like I went in with full health, and by the end, I was searching for, there was like one like little tiny like health vial across the map, and I made it to it. And as I was pressing triangle to pick up the health vial, I got hit with a laser and my run ended. And I was like, oh my gosh, like there's like so many moments like that.
And as I said, it's not all the time where you're going to lose a lot of time on a run. Sometimes you just walk out of the room and get killed right away.
Yeah.
That's the run. Like, you never know what's going to happen. But I'm just saying that the possibility is there, and you need to be ready for that. You need to be ready for a challenging experience.
So
And
go ahead. Sorry.
no. But I want to say, like,
question.
the fact that this game made me feel these things, I always like that. It's exhilarating. And it's very powerful. It's powerful. These different pieces of art come together. The enemies look scary. The music, as I already mentioned, really ratchets up just this grinding terror. It's not like, it's not horror terror. It's not like, oh, a werewolf. It's more like something bad is going to happen to me, or I'm going to see something really creepy. And you will.
So
on both counts.
This is for both Dan and Alex, I guess, since you've both been playing. This has been marketed a lot as like, one of the first real like PS5 games. And like, how does it take advantage of the new systems?
For me, I know when people see my score on this game and how I talk about this game, I'm going to get called a Sony pony. And I'm okay with that. I'm the PC editor at Game Informer, in case you don't know. I don't really care to game on consoles, so I don't have a dog in that race. I really don't. This is a great game, period. Now, how does next gen come into it? The DualSense stuff, I've seen a lot of other people online talking about it. It's like a neat side thing, but this happened to me on the other games for PlayStation.
Wait, hold on. How does it use the DualSense?
So at certain points, you feel it when you get hit by a giant monster. It's going to rumble. You feel, in the beginning of the game, you feel like minutia, like raindrops. It really plays that up at the beginning of the game. But after that, it doesn't.
Kind of fades.
I don't recall it happening again. But again, it's all there. It's happening. It's cool. But it's not a game changer for me. And I said that about, Call of Duty's different weights on the adaptive triggers and Demon Souls stuff on the parrying and blocking. Maybe it's just me. It's possible that I'm just an old man who doesn't get it, okay? Who doesn't really get all the benefit from the haptics and stuff like that. It's cool, but it's not like, oh my God, I got to play it on X, Y, or Z.
Does it make use of the fast loading or something?
Sure, absolutely. Definitely loads really fast,
cool,
which is great. You're going to be dying a lot. And the room loading, this game would be a lot more frustrating if it took time to load between rooms or areas. Like it doesn't. It's seamless. So that's great.
Isn't there some kind of, Edge of Tomorrow story or something in this game?
There is a story, and I'm not going to talk about it. But it's something that you piece together through the course of a playthrough.
You don't have to give spoilers, obviously, but did you find the story interesting, compelling? Is that one of the reasons you'd say?
I found it incredibly suited. I mean, I think about 75% of the way through the story, what they show in a campaign playthrough of the story, you'll have a good idea of what's going on. And it's very suited to the genre I mentioned. Sci-fi,
it's a
horror.
Story you can understand.
Depending on how much time you put into the game, you may or may not understand it.
Okay, did you like the story?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. It's a story you enjoyed.
It is not relayed to you in a single cutscene. There are many different cutscenes that drip feed it to you. You start to put different associations together. You will have to pay attention at some points to do it, but there are other hard cutscenes, checkpoints that will be more explicit in what has occurred or is occurring. And you will understand once you find out more about the story why I'm being so cryptic, because I would not want to rob anyone of the discovery.
Sounds fair. Sounds fair for any story, honestly. The reviews are up on the site now. What did you give this, Dan?
A 9.5.
Wow.
It's not just a game. It's an experience. That's like
there's your tagline for the
when I get to the 9.5 tier and above, for me, I want to make that's something that I have gone through that has been really special to me. And that made me feel more than just like, oh, that level was well designed, or oh, that music was really good. This is a cohesive experience with different elements contributing to the whole. And that makes it a very powerful play.
And what would you give this podcast so far?
An 8.
Let's see if we can do any better.
Wow,
Brian.
not an experience. Wow.
Pressure's on, buddy. Let's see if we can make this podcast better. What have you been playing?
Been playing new Pokémon Snap for Nintendo Switch.
Ooh. All right. And let me guess. Do you take a lot of photos in this game?
You do.
I was trying to make a joke, but like, if you've played the original Pokemon Snap, is there going to be any surprises here, or can you close your eyes and picture what this game is all about?
Well, you just take basically a photo mode and make it an entire game, and there you have it. But no,
Wait, really?
it's very much a similar like it's very similar to the original. Like you ride on rails sequences throughout levels, like different environments, and take pictures of Pokemon in their natural habitats. Like that is the entire concept of the game. There are definitely like different story elements that come into play that I can't talk about, nor would I want to rob people of that
Wait,
experience.
but is it a good story?
Hang on, you're just messing with me now, bro. This is a Pokemon game. This is a Pokemon game. Give me a break. If I play this and there's not some deep story that I have to figure out, I am coming after you.
You do have to piece it together over multiple playthroughs.
Yeah,
I think he's saying that it's a story you can understand.
there's bullet hell elements, grotesque sci-fi horror.
I mean, obviously, sorry, Brian, you were a fan of the original, correct?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing about Pokemon Snap. It came out on N64 in 1999, like mere months after Pokemon as a whole came to the US. Like it was like one of the first things Pokemon related that came to the US. So
That's
like
weird. So it was really just the original 151.
yeah, I mean,
Pokemon
I
in
think
there.
like the final thing that you did in the original Pokemon Snap was like there was like a encounter with Mew, and it was like, oh man, that's so cool. I never thought I'd see Mew in like a 3D game or like in a game at all, because all we had was red and blue, and like you had to have like Game Shark to get Mew or go to like the special event. But yeah, I mean, there's now exponentially more Pokemon in the game. They have about 1,000 to pull through at this point, or pull from at this point. And you travel through a lot of different biomes, you photograph a lot of different Pokemon, and now they have things like as you get high scores on your photos, which the professor judges you based on, which he looks surprisingly like Kyle Hilliard. If you haven't seen a picture of Professor Mir in New Pokemon Snap, it's basically Kyle Hilliard in the game. It's weird. But he grades your photos, and then you get a score, and then you level up each area. And then as you level up your research level in that area, new opportunities and new Pokemon will start appearing in that same run. So while you have to go through these levels multiple times throughout like your playthrough, a lot of the times once you level it up, you're getting new variants on that level. You're getting the ability to go to different times of day. So like, if you go at night on the beach, there's going to be different Pokemon out and about, because there's nocturnal species and daytime species, and then
There's certain shortcuts you can take, you can unlock.
Yeah, so there's different areas, like you can scan like the environment, and sometimes you'll uncover like new routes you can take through the environment. There's nothing like earth shattering or anything. It's just like a small fork that will eventually loop back over to the main path. But like in like one of the kind of beach levels, you go out into like the middle of like this like air, like water area where like a lot of rocks are jutting out. But if you scan the thing, you'll go closer to the shore where like a Machamp is hanging out with like a couple other Pokemon. And depending on the time of day that you go, depending on the research level you have, there'll be different opportunities. And then also as you play, you unlock different tools. So there's Illumina orbs, which light up the Pokemon and plants, and sometimes will like cause them to give you different reactions. Like some Pokemon will do like a signature move if you hit them with the Illumina orb. There's Fluff Fruit that you can throw at them, which are basically just apples that you can throw them at the Pokemon to like get their attention, or you can throw them near them and like lure them to like the area you want to shoot them at. There's a Melody Player, which I found kind of useless, but it caused Pokemon to dance. Like very few Pokemon react to that thing. And then there's the aforementioned scan tool that will give you information about the environment, and also sometimes get like a minor reaction out of some Pokemon.
So you've just listed off a bunch of things you can do, but do you feel like, in a sense, the gameplay is still kind of simplistic, because you're ultimately on a track and you're just aiming the camera at things and taking photos, right?
Yeah, but there are like puzzle elements to almost every level where you have to try to figure out like there's one where you're underwater and like you scan and it's like, oh, there's sounds like stuff coming from the other side of this rock. How could we possibly get through it? And then like after you play it like multiple times and like level it up, eventually there's a Pokemon there that will appear, and like he's just kind of hanging out there, and you have to figure out a way to kind of like trigger him to use his attack to blow away the rocks. And then you have like this, it's basically like a whole new level down there. So there's a lot of things like that where it's like you just have to kind of solve the puzzle or play it enough and figure out like exactly, or play it enough until you have the right tools to do certain things. And while it does definitely get repetitive, playing the same levels over and over again, they give you the content in such a way that, like, whether it's, you know, a different time of day that you can go back, a different tool that you have for that area, or you know, you leveled up the variant of that level so that now you can go back and see new Pokemon and have new opportunities in that area. They give you those at enough of a pace that you feel like, you know, it isn't mundane.
Yeah.
Like,
There's like an incentive, like, oh, if I do one more run, I can probably level this up and then
Mhm.
get that new variant. Let me do that. And yeah, it feels like a good pace. And I am not the Pokemon fan that Shay is. I'd say like I'm a lapsed Pokemon fan. I played the original Pokemon Snap. Exactly. I played the original Pokemon Snap when it released on N64 and loved it. But kind of in the years since, like, I've kind of fallen off of Pokemon a bit. And this has been like a really pleasant, especially coming off the back of, you know, capturing Returnal footage. Pokemon Snap was like a very nice, like, pleasant palate cleanser. And there's like a lot of Pokemon in the game that I have no idea what this is. But I feel like one of the struggles that I have in mainline Pokemon games when I jump in is, you know, there's this huge pool of Pokemon, right? I think it's like 900 or something. And I kind of feel like I'm missing out on, like, I'm missing like part of the context of why I should be excited that they're in those games. And meanwhile, on like social media, everyone's like, oh my gosh, I just got this. I'm like, I don't know what that, it looks like a little ice cream cone. I don't know what this is, you know? Yeah, there's a lot of Pokemon like that now. And I find that seeing them in Pokemon Snap gives me that context to kind of appreciate their character design, but also just like their personality. And like, it's like, oh, I see why people like, this Pokemon's over here and they're like, you know, dancing, or they're like looking for fish or whatever. Like, you kind of see more, there's more personality to it that I have really appreciated.
Sure.
So
yeah, it's interesting though too that you came in with at least some nostalgia for Pokemon. And to be clear, this probably is not the game for non-Pokemon fans, right? Like, if you have no
Yeah.
nostalgia for Pokemon or that original game,
probably not for you.
probably look away.
Wow.
Hey,
Yeah,
am I wrong?
I don't know. I haven't played it.
something like, so much of the appeal is seeing these characters. I mean, back then, even that was the appeal. It's like, you know, your two options for engaging with Pokemon at that point were, you know, the Game Boy games, which were very rudimentary in like their visuals, or watching the anime, which were both freshly introduced to the US at that point. And then this game came on N64, and it's like, wow, you can see these creatures that, like, I kind of picture in my head what they actually would look like in 3D. I was worried that a lot of that would be lost now that, you know, there's a million Pokemon games.
That novelty's not here anymore, obviously, but it sounds like there's a little bit more to hang your hat on, at least gameplay wise, it sounds like. So if you are enthusiastic about Pokemon, you know, there's some entertainment value there.
And I really do enjoy, like, kind of the first person perspective, being immersed in this world. Like, it is kind of cool that you kind of phase into an environment and then you're just immediately surrounded by Pokemon at like all angles. So like,
I would love this to like I want somebody on PC to like mod VR into like this or something.
I did think that I thought about that while I was playing. I was like, this would be I'm not a huge VR guy, but this would be great in VR.
Yeah.
Get on it, Nintendo. They do have that what was that cart Labo? They had that Labo VR kit.
Yeah, that's not how
Sweet. Sweet.
No, but I enjoy the game. I was like kind of not skeptical, but cautious, or maybe worried is the right word. I was worried that I was just like riding on all nostalgia. And for the most part, I mean, they're definitely like trying to play to that, but there is a game to enjoy on top of like seeing the Pokemon, right? Like the puzzle of, okay, I want to get a better ranking photo. I need to, right now, the framing isn't great here. There has to be another way to get this Pokemon somewhere else or get me somewhere else. How do I figure that out? And that's a fun little, you know, puzzle mechanic. So
Definitely.
That's cool. Well, that review is also up on the site. Brian, what'd you give that one?
8.5.
8.5. That's what I would give this podcast, personally.
We're going up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. I think we're getting better. Alex, I know you had spent most of your week playing Returnal and Pokemon Snap, but anything you want to add?
No, very much enjoying both of them. Returnal was a game that I wasn't sure if I was going to like. I've only played one Housemarque game before, and that was Resogun. And so
It's a great game, though.
it is, it is. I am pleased to say that this game is easily one of my favorites of the year. But like Dan said, it's a special experience, and I'm only probably a third through the main game, so there's still a lot more for me to see.
I want to round out the playlist by talking about what I've been playing recently. A little game called Judgment. You guys remember this one?
Yeah,
But yeah, it just came out on the new Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, and Stadia. So a little Stadia plug for you there. if you want.
nice.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a cool little game. I hadn't played it when it first came out. Did you guys play it when it came out?
I started it. I did. It's one of those games that I like. I love the Yakuza series, so it's like I wanted to play it, but I think it just came out at a time that there was so much else going on that I just didn't have a ton of time to pour into it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's from the team that does the Yakuza series. I'm having a year of Yakuza, a Yakuza, if you will. I finished Like a Dragon. I played Kiwami 1 and 2. So I'm way through the series, and I'm like, well, maybe it's a good time to play Like a Dragon, or not Like a Dragon, play Judgment, because that was the weird offshoot game that, there's some characters I think that make appearance, but by and large, this is a new main character, a new story. It's set in Japan. If you're not familiar with the series, it's a lawyer who, sort of defamed lawyer who becomes a private eye, and it's his journey through Japan's seedy underworld, solving crimes. I'm only like a few hours in so far, but I'm digging it for some of the same reasons that I really dug the Yakuza games. The combat's pretty fun. The story is I really like their storytelling. It's kind of it's just fun storytelling is what it is. It's kind of soap operatic,
Melodrama.
Yeah. But I'm really digging how they it's like good dumb noir paperback novel type storytelling, which I'm totally game for here.
I know that Yakuza, the I feel like everyone kind of hangs their hat on the characters in that game, and that's why a lot of people love them. Are you like finding yourself like getting attached to the characters in Judgment? Because I assume it's a different cast entirely, right?
Yeah, it is a different cast, and yeah, the more you get to know them, the more you love them. Yeah, the main character is pretty interesting right out of the gate, and then some of his side cast characters, I'm really getting to know them and appreciate them. The one thing I will say is there's more mini games, it seems like, in this entry. There's a lot of stuff where you're like tailing characters, the classic Assassin's Creed, tail this character and don't let them see you, which is kind
Everyone's
of boring,
favorite.
honestly.
Not
Yeah.
great.
And then there's a lot of sequences where you have to like stop and go into first person to look around and find something, which is a little bit, I don't know, a little mundane, I think. So I could do without those, but it's not like super hard, complex stuff to get through to get to the story, which I find interesting, and the combat, which is pretty entertaining. So anyway, if you missed Judgment, if you like Yakuza, check it out.
So you've played, you said Kiwami 2, Like a Dragon. You've played Zero, right?
And I previously played Zero. I didn't play Zero this year, but yeah, I played Zero when it came out. So
I know it's a different,
halfway through the series at this point, weirdly.
which is weird because like they're all like I feel like they go on for so long, like all those games, and I love them. Like I adore the Yakuza series, but it's they all seem like they kind of go on for like longer than you expect them to, given the story. But that's
that's what's impressive about it, is that especially with Like a Dragon, because that game was like 60 hours or something, and they kept the story pretty engaging the whole time, which I was impressed by. Zero was the same way, but yeah, Yakuza Kiwami 1 and 2 are a little bit shorter, maybe a 12 to 15 hour experience if you're in the mood for that.
So where would you rank Judgment in the ones that you've played, the Yakuza games?
Man, I haven't finished it yet, so I don't know. I think the storytelling's a little more sophisticated than Kiwami 1 and 2, so I'm digging that, but also the gameplay stuff they added maybe knocks it down a tad bit in my mind. So it's maybe somewhere in the middle so far. I think I really liked Like a Dragon and Zero probably the most. So if you want to start with one of those, but Judgment's also a nice little side game, so I'm digging it. Hopefully they keep making those.
Sweet.
By the way, it's $40 on Xbox.
Oh,
I thought it was on Game Pass. I was looking up if it was on Game Pass, because I know a lot of Yakuza games are being added to Game Pass, but it turns out it's not one of the ones that's on there. But it is optimized for Series X and S.
Game
We're
Pass,
not-
good stuff.
Game
we're
Pass
not going to
rules.
write a new review for Judgment, but Jeff Cork did give it a 9. If you want to go read that original review, which is on the site right now. Cool.
Sweet.
Let's take a break here from playlist and talk about Mortal Kombat. Brian, you want to do that?
Hell yeah.
All right, Dan, get out of here.
Bye.
All right, we're back. Back for blood, that is. We have Alex and Brian are still here, and joined with us are Leanna and Marcus. How are you guys doing?
What up?
I'm doing great. It's a lovely day.
Yeah. Brian, Leanna, Marcus, you guys are here because you all watched the Mortal Kombat movie. In fact, you guys recorded a spoiler on it, so people can go watch that video if they want to get the full scoop, and they've already seen it. This will be spoiler free, just so you know going in. But Mortal Kombat film, what'd you guys think?
I liked it. I've had a few days for it to sink in a bit, think about it more, and I enjoyed it, and I would watch it again. But for me, it still doesn't top that first, like that 95 film. And like, actually, you can check out my updated rankings of all the adaptations. I think I ultimately ranked it third behind Scorpion's Revenge and that 95 film, which is still pretty good. You know, it's not Annihilation territory, but you know, like outside of like some issues I had, like the performances, some of them being a bit wooden, and the weird lore changes, and some of the villains just kind of being there, and then Cole Young in general, basically. I had a lot of fun with it. It is a fun, weird thing, but I would watch it again. It's a weird thing.
Okay, that sounds good. Brian, you actually wrote a review for our website. What did you think of it?
I did. I gave it an 8 out of 10, which, you know, I think is a pretty solid score, especially for what this movie is. It's not supposed to be like the deepest thinker of the year. It's not going to win the Academy Awards or anything like that, but it's a lot of fun. And as somebody who loves the Mortal Kombat franchise, I enjoyed seeing these characters represented in respectful ways up on, I guess, essentially what you could call a big screen. Like it's a fairly decent sized TV. It's not the theater, unfortunately. I think I'm still the next blockbuster will be the one I go see in theater. But however, I really enjoyed it. I think that I really hope we get a sequel. There's definitely hints at sequels, again, without spoiling. But yeah, they did a great job with most of the characters. They really capitalized on the R rating, which is something that it undeniably has over the 95 movie. I would actually rank this if I was looking over Marcus's rankings today just to see like how I thought of it, because I actually agreed mostly with his rankings originally before this one was injected in. I would put like, now that I've kind of thought of it like over the course of several weeks now, I would probably put Scorpion's Revenge at number 1, this Mortal Kombat at number 2, and then 95 at number 3.
Oh,
reverse
interesting.
order.
One is
Okay.
really good.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I have a lot of fondness for that original Mortal Kombat film just because it's so dumb and fun, which sounds like this one is too, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. Leanna, how would you rank this one?
I don't know how I would rank it. I mean, to be completely honest with our listeners, like in the 18 years I've been writing, I've never reviewed a movie. My approach to movies is I'm just here for a good time, because writing about games, I have to take games a lot more seriously than maybe a lot of people would want to. So my approach to movies is I just want to laugh. I want to have fun. I want to enjoy it. So for me, I was a little bit less nitpicky. Because I didn't have to be. Like Brian was very critical in his piece, which is really good for people wanting a very like in-depth analysis. But for me, at first I thought 95 film, because that's to this day one of my favorite movies. I probably have watched that close to 100 times since it first came out. Yeah, like
I'm probably not far behind you on that.
Yeah, like it's one of those comfort films when you just need to kind of disappear for a little bit. And then, so I rewatched it because I really enjoyed it. Because for me, at first, 95 was number one. And then we talked about the movie. We watched this one. I was like, yeah, 95 is still my go-to. But then I was like, well, is that like rose-colored glasses or something? So I went back and rewatched the 95 version. And I definitely think this one was better. But go into it knowing that they do retcon some things. Like they've definitely played around with the canon a little bit to make it fit the format of their vision. But for me, I think it does what it set out to do. And what it set out to do was to be a fun Mortal Kombat experience. And, you know, we're used to the cheesiness of fatality. And we're used to, you know, the nerdiness and the goriness. And I think it blended the two aspects very nicely. I think if you go into this movie taking it very seriously and, you know, critiquing it up against the Oscars and the Academy, then you're going to be very disappointed.
Yeah, I have been rewatching some of the Oscar nominees. Should I add this preemptively to next year's list?
Yeah. How does this compare to Nomadland?
Yeah. Are we talking like Best Picture here, you think?
But yeah, no, it's, you know, it does the cheese well. I do agree with Marcus. And after we got done recording that spoiler class, I was like thinking about it more because I couldn't get it out of my head. They kind of did Cold Dirty, but at the same time, it didn't bother me as much as it bothered other people because I enjoyed Kano so much. Like I demand a Kano spinoff movie, like of just
what's good about this guy? I mean, I know Kano from the games, obviously.
He's
you know,
such a
sassy Aussie. Is he Australian?
Yeah, he's Aussie.
And he's just a jerk. That's his gimmick.
Yeah, but a charming jerk. Like he pretty much occupies Johnny Cage's role of like the comic relief, like wisecracking guy, because he's like all over this film. And like Brian, I forget the actor that plays him, is Josh Lawson. Okay, like you could tell he's like having a blast with that role. Like a lot of the best jokes and lines are honestly from him in that film, and his reactions to everything, like just in character. I was like, it felt more realistic and believable of like a normal guy seeing all this crazy stuff than Cole Young, even though he's like ostensibly supposed to really be that guy. I'm like, wow, this is weird.
Did they give him his metal eye?
About his portrayal of this, and he basically made it seem like, yeah, he loved having like the comedic relief role like kind of thrown in his lap, and like he had a blast portraying Kano in this movie.
You know how every group of friends has like the asshole? They're like, he's an ass, but like he's our ass, so you can't mess with him. That's what Kano is. Like nobody else can insult him, but you just kind of want to backhand him like every 2 seconds.
His performance felt the most natural of anyone else in that film to me. Like there were some performers I was like, oh, it feels like they're just kind of playing this character, but I was like, no, that is Kano. That's totally Kano right there.
Are they going to? I haven't seen the film yet. I actually might watch it this evening. Are they like setting up like to bring these back, and like, do you think this will have a sequel?
I think yes. If you watch the movie, there are definite hints that there are more coming if this is successful enough, obviously, which I think people seem to have watched it a lot. So hopefully that means it's successful.
And also, real quick to clarify on that, where can I watch it? I know what is HBO? Okay, all right. I gotta sign up.
So feel like going to a theater right now.
Yeah, it is in theaters too if you can brave the theaters, but it seems like HBO Max is also a good place for it. The action's fun. You guys like the action?
Oh, the action's amazing.
Yeah, fight scenes are fantastic.
Fighting scenes, they have the arcade music, so like okay. I gotta gush for a second. Sorry, guys, but that was my favorite part. Marcus, I nerded out with you about this because it's like, it's just artistry. Like that's what Mortal Kombat is known for. It's not like there's so many fighting games out there, but what sets Mortal Kombat apart is the fact that the combat is so intricate, so brutal, so in your face, but there's a dance to it. And we said this in the spoiler cast. It's like a macabre dance, and the movie absolutely paid tribute to that. And it's very evident too with the opening sequence. And it's just like when they started doing like the whoa, especially the Goro, even though that was a very short fight because of the CGI budget, it was mind-blowing. And then they started when they were in the training area and they were trying to get good, and then they started playing the freaking stellar like arcade music. I was so pumped. Like it was like totally fangirling out. I was like, yes, this is what I wanted out of a Mortal Kombat movie. But I was just
Can we just pay a little bit of appreciation to that opening sequence with Hanzo Hasashi and Bihan?
Yeah,
That
it's
was, I would like. I think that the whole movie is a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. But that opening sequence is just unbelievable.
yeah.
So,
It's-
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like I think it's probably that and another scene are probably my two favorite scenes in that entire movie. Like I think it opens so strong.
Without any spoilers, that are in the original 95 film, one of my childhood favorites. I don't know why my mom let me. I was like 10, but my mom let me watch it over and over, and I loved it. Is there a scene that tops the oh my god, I'm having a brain fart.
You think about Johnny Cage?
No, what's his name?
Okay.
No, number 2 on your list.
Sub-Zero.
Sub-Zero. The scene with Sub-Zero in the 95 film where he swings the bucket of ice around.
Oh,
And is there like a moment that's like my favorite moment? Is there a moment that
That might be
tops
my
that?
least favorite moment.
What?
In
I
that
love that moment, dude.
that scene is very silly.
Oh my
If you
gosh.
really put up-
I haven't
but
watched it
is
since
a
I was
cool-
like I haven't
yeah.
watched it since I was a kid, so it's probably bad. But it sticks with me, man. Like him swinging around the ice bucket.
Yeah, I still don't understand how that works exactly, but like, I mean, in terms of like a cool kill, yeah, there's a lot of those. Like, because a lot of the kills in this movie are literally just fatalities ripped from the game. Like, you just see, and you're like, yeah, that's that move that character does. Like, they didn't change
Awesome.
anything.
Sub-Zero is a total badass in this movie.
I've heard.
Horror movie icon.
Yeah.
Like when everybody's running at the fastest pace they can, and he's like slow crawling it, yet somehow he's always 2 steps ahead of you.
It made Sub-Zero scary.
Yeah, he's a horror movie villain in this.
Really?
movie. And
And
like,
Oh.
So well, again, without spoiling, but the payoff with Scorpion and Sub-Zero, I think, is phenomenal.
Yeah,
That's cool. That's good to hear. They also created some new characters for this film, didn't they?
just the one. Well, I mean, like Cole and his family, pretty much it. Yeah, like everyone else is from the games. Yeah,
What does Cole, is he feel like he belongs? Is he like an interesting character that you're like, hey, we should see him in the games?
no, not to me. But like, if they do, like it's like Brian said, like it's left out of nowhere. Seems like okay, there could be more of this, and with him, but like, like I went into this like opening mind, like okay, I'm ready to like this guy, and I finished the film, and I was just like, I think I could have like he could have been gone, and I wouldn't have minded, or it maybe in a way it might be better because it feels like the lore and the fiction kind of has to bend itself around this new character to work. And in some ways it works, and in some ways I'm a little like, maybe not so much.
There are some scenes with him that I really like. There are some story beats with him that I really like. But overall, the most interesting stuff is the stuff that involves the already established characters.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a problem with him like people had a problem with him, but yeah, he was they really leaned hard into how he was like in this patriarchal type role, almost like he's the calm in the storm, like always, even though the very beginning instance with him literally starts out with him just being incredibly insecure with his skills. So it was an interesting juxtaposition there, but yeah, he was very like stoic in a lot of ways, which made it really hard to relate him to other characters. But I mean, his fight scenes were pretty dope, and I'd be interested to see how he plays off of new arrivals, because they said, I forgot who the interview was with. I want to say it was like Hollywood Reporter or somebody, but the director mentioned that they're going to be having a lot of new characters if the sequel does get greenlit, because they're greenlit for 4 other movies. As long as it's successful, they're all signed a contract for 4 films. But like they very much teased that like Katana and characters like that would be making making their big screen debut again. And I'd be interested to see how Cole interacts with them, especially with the ending, which I won't say, but there is an ending that very much sets up for a second movie. Specifically,
This movie has an ending.
You scared me for a second when you said more new characters. I thought you meant more original characters. I was like, oh god. It's more Cole family members. It's Cole's sister and his
So is
cousin.
Cole going to be in the games, you think, eventually?
I honestly asked this on our spoiler cast if in the coming months Mortal Kombat 11 might release like a free update with Cole as like a playable character, and I would not be surprised if that happens, just as like a promotional thing, especially like maybe if we get closer to like a home media release.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like it's I guess it could happen, but I mean it.
Is he just the everyman?
Pretty much. He's like Did you play? He's like the Ghostbusters video game. How that the most recent one from 2009 had. Or like, hey, you can't be the Ghostbusters. We're gonna make a new guy that doesn't talk and doesn't have a name, and it just gives you an excuse to hang out with the characters that you actually care about. That's
Who
pretty
likes
much
that,
Cole Young.
By the way, why is there producers out there who thinks that's a good idea? Like, no, nobody wants to play as this established character. It's got to be a new person. We don't need our movie like to focus on these characters that have been like established.
We need to see it
30
all through the
years that
lens.
everybody loves. We need a new character. I don't know who's out there doing
what
that.
if you
but
watch
stop
Luke-
it?
Yeah, it's like, what if you watch Liu Kang over there, but you don't actually follow Liu Kang's story, but he's there and you get to like see what he's doing. It's kind of like that a little bit.
It's
Wait till you
absurd.
hear about Mortal Kombat Deception's Conquest mode.
Oh my gosh.
Honestly, I would take Shujinko over Cole Young.
Well, I'm glad to hear the movie's good and it's entertaining. So
It's a fun time.
we got another good video game movie. That's great.
Yeah, it is a strong first start if this is going to be a big franchise. Like, good foundation.
Awesome.
Bigger
Awesome.
budget. Give us a
Well,
bigger
we've mentioned it a couple times, but there's that spoiler cast. People can go look on our website, check out Mortal Kombat Spoiled, or there's the review that Brian wrote. If you want to go read up more on the actual game. Sorry, the actual movie. Talk about so many games here, but this is the movie. I keep forgetting.
We're a movie podcast now.
Yeah, we're a movie podcast now. We're so authentic.
About games.
movie informer.
Cool. Well, thanks for being on the show, guys. Leanna and Marcus, you got things to do, so we'll let you get going. But let's take a break and come back for some emails. And we're back, everyone. Dan Tack showed back up. How's it going?
You can't keep me away, Ben.
Hey, sorry to kick you out of that discussion. Did you watch the new Mortal Kombat film?
I did, and I think I have a very different opinion than most people here, so I'm glad I wasn't there for that.
Oh, you want to tease what you thought?
In short, I didn't like it.
Okay.
Whoa!
Bold choice not to like
Can't keep a
something.
good tack down.
But that's not why you're here. You're here to answer some emails, right, Dan?
I think so.
Okay.
Unless I got called here for an ambush meeting where we're actually going to talk about Mortal Kombat again.
No. We're going to answer some emails. People write in to us, podcast@gameinformer.com. They send us their thoughts. They send us characters to rank, which hopefully we'll get back to next week. And then, just other fun things to play. If you want to have a game you want us to play, a trivia game, we love it. Podcast@gameinformer.com. Please send us your emails. This first one comes in from Zach from Tulsa. Says, hey, I've been back in the office for a while now, but I'm still trying to avoid interaction, which has me eating lunch by myself. I'm sorry to hear this, Zach. I have a Game Pass and an Android phone, so I've started playing games through xCloud. So that's cool. Little plug for xCloud there, which is neat that you can do that. Since it's on my phone, the service is decent but not perfect. But whenever I play, the timing can be a little off. So this pushed me towards indie titles on Xbox. I recently finished Edith Finch, great game, and he started playing Hellblade, he says, which is another good game I think worth checking out. Does the crew have any suggestions for games on Game Pass that are perfect to be played on a phone in 30 to 45-minute intervals? So interesting set of criteria there, but I love it. Do you guys have any options?
I
He
do.
says, P.S. He says he does have a controller. So, if you need a controller to play it, that's not a problem.
I do. And this might not be their genre or whatever, but like perfect for the time block and perfect for the platform because I believe both these games are on Game Pass right now. Slay the Spire and Monster Train are both on Game Pass, and they are perfect for 30-minute sessions that you can pick up, play a whole run, and be done. Perfect for lunch. You get a nice
Yeah.
soup, You don't have to worry about controls. It's really easy to control. It's good stuff. If
You
that's your
recommend
genre,
lobster bisque? What's the best soup, Dan?
I do love a good lobster bisque.
Hard to top.
But chicken
really good.
tortilla, I think, is my
Whoa.
classic comfort.
Dan,
soup.
where do you stand on tomato soup with grilled cheese?
I do love it, although I can't eat grilled cheese anymore. But
Ah.
that was always sort of ridiculed as an old person meal, I think.
Nah.
But I always loved it. That actually that's a perfect fitting, right? You dip the sandwich into the tomato.
I might have that for lunch today. Some
It's
tomato
so good.
basil.
It's so good.
Ooh.
I think people don't like that because they have like a really bad, like the first time they're introduced to it, it's probably like a crappy tomato soup.
Yeah.
And like a couple pieces of like white bread slapped together with American cheese. That's not how you do it. All right. You need the good ingredients and you'll have a blast. Good call, Shay.
Yeah.
That's a good combo.
Get on that, Zach. Eat some real grilled cheese for once.
But yeah, Slay the Spire and Monster Train, if you're into roguelike deck builders, and if you're not, you might as well try them anyway, right? They're on Game Pass. Go for it. Perfect 30-minute knockout.
Those are great choices, Dan. I was going to suggest Thronebreaker, which is another card-based game, which done from the Witcher team. It's based on Gwent, which I think is a fun game. I know some people were not into Gwent or whatever for some reason. Gwent's a cool game, and this is the one that adds a story to it. But they really do some neat things with setting up puzzles you have to solve within Gwent, if that makes sense, using the Gwent mechanics, but they're more like puzzles that you're trying to like figure out like the correct way to play certain cards to win the thing. So I had a lot of fun with that. And there's actually a decent little story in there if you're in the mood for that.
I'm going to go the opposite of you guys. You guys are kind of talking about these bite-sized, gameplay first, I feel, games. I'm going to throw something cinematic onto the table. You should play A Plague Tale: Innocence. And here's why. The game's chapters are doled out in such a way that you could probably, depending on the level, knock out a chapter in about 45 minutes. And there are some certain action sequences that are in the game, but there is a heavy amount of auto aim going on. Like even on for like a regular controller, sitting here at my TV, it was something that it's like you press left trigger and like the character kind of like it's really easy. And I think you could probably get by with those segments on a phone pretty easily, especially if you have, I think you said he has a Razer Kishi or something, controller of some sort. Yeah, you should play A Plague Tale: Innocence. That game is really cool. Cool puzzle elements, good story, perfect for when you're sitting there eating your soup.
I was trying to go
finish
for
that game?
Yeah.
Did you finish that game, Alex?
I got to the very end, yes. I don't think I technically finished it, but I have seen everything. Long story.
Interesting story there. Interesting.
I'm just trying to
that
think
is a game where the story I think is underrated just because a ton of people didn't play it.
Yeah.
like sandwich in hand, and any game with any kind of action, not turn-based, could be rough, right? Like, because we're assuming he's got to eat his meal as well as play the game here. But I do like the suggestion because it's kind of an off-chart one. I definitely would have thought that.
Yeah. Well, I'd also looked at like what Night in the Woods is on there, which is another story-based game where there's really not a lot of timing-based mechanics to it. So that'd be a good one. Or Grim Fandango, classic. I think it's the remastered one. Classic Tim Schafer, LucasArts adventure game, which I think is, if you've never experienced it, really cool little world that they built there and pretty amusing little story. So check that out.
So I have a few here. One, kind of a broader one, is that there are a decent amount of kind of older Final Fantasy games on there. I know that's not really great for short time bursts, but I mean, there are definitely, if you're stuck on an area, it's good to go and just grind for 30 or 45 minutes if you need to get your level up. So something to keep in mind there. Not the best idea for that. But Peggle is on Game Pass. That's a super fun game.
That's a great one.
Pick.
You can
Good
play
pick.
30 minutes pretty easily. Super Hot Mind Control Delete is on there, which it's a shooter. So you would think that maybe it's not the best for the kind of the latency that you're talking about, but the concept being that time doesn't move unless you do, or it moves very slowly unless you move. I don't know how that would work with the control latency, but again, it's Game Pass. So if you have Game Pass, you have nothing to lose by trying it. There's a game called The Tourist that is basically, it's an indie game that you go around, you're basically completing like to-do lists. I played it real quick over our Christmas break that we had last year, and it has some problems, but it's overall a fun little indie game. It's Tourist spelled with a Y instead of an I. And then a thing that might not be the best quick hit thing, but Cities Skylines is on Game Pass. It might be tricky on a phone, but it's a really good game. And you can jump into a city builder and spend hours and hours, or you could jump in and like just kind of get some management stuff out of the way and continue your marathon session when you get home.
I don't know how quick resume works with xCloud. Does it do a quick resume? Because that could be a pretty good problem solver for some of those.
We'll have to
longer
test that
games.
out.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah,
Also,
those are some good options. Probably
good.
too many options, honestly, Chris. But
Hey,
good luck.
we're
You're
doing
set
a
for months.
comprehensive job here, and I gotta get a Sammy and some tomato soup.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Chris from Cleveland writes in, says, by now we've acknowledged that many of us are struggling with some anxiety and depression due to the pandemic and everything that comes with it. Video games have definitely helped, giving me the ability to socially interact online behind the confidence of a powerful avatar. World of Warcraft Classic has been the most helpful, as it encourages me to work with others in teamwork, communication, and joining a guild. I've even become a tank, which is something that has given me more confidence, because it's something that
A lot of responsibility.
Yeah, well, that's what he says. It says it's always a role that's pretty important, but complicated, and something that he kind of shied away from in the past. So it's something that he wanted to try now, which is cool. So anyway, his question is, what video game helped you the most with anxiety, depression, or social interaction?
Well, I think those are all very different things. As mentioned, games like World of Warcraft and other socially focused MMOs can really help, I guess, with social stuff. Just like, Among Us games and stuff like that. Discord's out there for a lot of different experiences now, but I think that's very different and separate from the other ones. Man, I'm not a therapist, and I don't think anybody else is here, but Souls games really do help me out of a funk sometimes. I'm telling you, I know it seems
What an interesting choice.
I know. It seems counter to what you'd expect, right? But
Okay.
for me and for a lot of people, I think that have gotten into the series, it's not about the defeats; it's about the victories, and I think those can flow into your overall mind sense. I think you get like I don't know, endorphins or something when you beat one of those big bosses. All right, I don't know how it works.
No.
Again,
When you said that initially, I was like, you are absolutely out of your mind. But then when you explain it that way, where if you focus on the victories instead of the defeats, that actually makes a lot of sense.
right? Because you can apply that to a perhaps darker reality, right? Like that's not going so great. You think about, you focus on, maybe you can't control everything in your life, but you can control that one thing and you did it. Good for you. And I mean, that's really compartmentalizing it down to the very essence, but it's cool. Trust me. I mean, at least it works for me. I can only speak personally.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Shay.
I was gonna say, I don't really have like something that has helped me specifically, like in the gaming world, with anxiety or depression or anything like that. But it's more for me just about like the comfort food gaming, like the Overwatches, the going back and playing my favorite games like Final Fantasy X or Breath of the Wild, like in a time, like the last year has been, where it's something none of us have ever lived through. There was a lot of uncertainty, particularly at the start of all of this. Going back and playing something familiar that reminds you of a better, more certain time can definitely help with that. I know that might not necessarily be the answer that this particular listener was looking for, but in terms of stuff that has helped me in the gaming world, I think that familiarity and that ability to just pick up a game that I know I love and jump right in is immensely helpful for me.
Would you call it the tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwich of gaming? Sort of. I'm not even being sarcastic. This is comfort food, right?
This episode of the Game Informer Show is sponsored by grilled cheese and tomato soup.
Perfect. I'm who? What was the name of the person that wrote in again? Is that
Chris?
Chris.
Wrote in.
Chris.
I'm
I'm with
Cleveland.
Chris from Cleveland. I'm with Chris on the World of Warcraft. That's like number one comfort food for me, but also like you get some friends on there, maybe meet a couple of randoms. It's a really good time. For me, on the anxiety depression side, that's something I struggle with. I'm medicated for it, but Celeste, I felt like was a really, it was a game that kind of took me by surprise with its narrative. It's simple, but I think it tells a really good story and focuses on this character that like deals with panic attacks and stuff, and she kind of overcomes it. And there's some cool moments in that game that are like kind of out of nowhere and poignant, I'd say. So I really like that game. And it's also kind of like a similar thing. Like that game is very challenging in certain parts. And when you kind of overcome it and and win, it is a really good feeling, and that also ties into, you know, the narrative themings of the game. So that'd be my
Yeah.
pick.
That's another one of those that, like Dan said, you're focusing more on the successes rather than the failures, and that's almost built into the story as well.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
I think
So-
something that's super challenging, like, and you work through it, you overcome that thing, kind of work through your junk while you're doing it. If that
Makes you feel
sense.
good.
Yeah, I read somewhere that there's like when you play something and you win in a video game, that endorphin rush you get, you can carry that out into other things that you're doing. Like when you stop playing the game, you still kind of get that endorphin rush that carries out into other things. So, you know, a little bit of a positive thing that games does.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, next email from Kobe Session 22 writes in, "Hey GI crew and guests." I think he's talking about you, Dan. I've
Ouch.
been wanting to write in for a while about one of my favorite games, Hollow Knight, but I couldn't figure out exactly what I wanted to say about it. I'll keep it short. When I first played the game, it didn't click for me. In fact, I almost gave up on it. A friend of mine wouldn't accept that without a fight and made me give it another shot. He also told me to stop looking up guides. I always feel like I was lost and I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. So he basically said, set a timer for an hour and don't look up anything, just explore. So after that hour, I put in 110 more hours, and now it's one of my top 3 games of all time.
Dang.
So my question is, what are any games that took you guys multiple times to get into, or games that you really had to work to love and ended up being one of your favorites?
I mean, I think I've told this story like 3 times on the podcast now, but it remains ever applicable. Dark Souls was a game that I immediately bounced off of. The first time I played it, I went down to the graveyard, fought the skeletons, said, what the hell is this game? Got back up, died to the skeletons a few more times, put it down. Picked it up again later, gave it another crack, and then it hit. I think it was the 3rd time I picked it up that it clicked, and I was like, all right, we're doing this thing. Like, it just plays differently and feels differently than everything else, and you just got to roll with it. And it took 3 attempts. I think both first attempts I think ended in that graveyard, or even going down into the the caves down there, which you can't see at all at the beginning of the game, by the way. They're like pitch black with horrible enemies in it. Anyway, that's there, right? And the game just let you go there. And at the time, that was unheard of in the gaming sphere, right? That most people weren't doing anything like that. That gave you that kind of freedom. And I bounced off Souls famously several times. And now, obviously, I have a very strong relationship with the Souls franchise.
So, Dan, I think of you a lot as the Dark Souls guy.
Yeah.
What were you before you were the Dark Souls guy?
I wish I knew. I feel, MMORPGs, MOBAs, card games, a lot of stuff that I still play.
That
But
makes sense.
but now I'm Souls man. You
That's what that S means when you pull your shirt open and there's the logo.
That's right.
Perfect.
I felt the same way with there's that game Outer Wilds. You guys remember that?
Oh
one?
yeah. I have not played it,
Outer
so
Wilds.
if you're gonna spoil it, I will take my headphones off.
No, I wasn't planning on
Also, while
spoiling
you're
that.
editing
thing,
the
but-
podcast.
I'm like about to play it. Like I downloaded it like 2 days ago. So,
Oh, really? Just
yeah.
randomly? Okay.
Yeah, it's
well,
been on my list to play for a while.
Yeah, it's a cool game. I mean, the main
Yeah.
gimmick, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
like the solar system's dying, and
Mhm.
I can't remember, every 6 minutes or something like that, everything implodes, and so it has sort of a roguelike element to it. But I think what's cool about that game is exploring that universe and slowly piecing together the narrative that they built in there, and it does that in a really cool way. But I remember the first several times I played it, I was like, I don't get this game. Like, I'm just supposed to be wandering around looking at things. Like, I had to keep coming back to it. And it was
Yeah.
different people were talking about it as their game of the year. I think maybe even won Giant Bomb's game of the year or something that year. But everybody loved it. And I finally was like, I'm going to give it another shot. And that's when it clicked for me. So it's interesting that just sometimes you'll hit things at the wrong time. And when you come back to them, then you love them.
Yeah. For me, I'm stubborn, I think is what it is. But if I play a game and I don't like it, I typically don't go back to it unless somebody like really, is asking me to. And for me, that was, funnily enough, Fortnite. I played it when Fortnite Battle Royale first came out in, I think, September 2017, something like that. And I was like, this game is so dumb. This is a game for babies. And
Whoa.
I know, controversial. But I'm saying this because I feel like might be a lot of people in the audience based on
Who
the
are
comments.
babies?
Yeah, who are babies? Exactly. Yes, exactly. No, I think there's a lot of people just in general in the gaming, community who maybe have tried Fortnite or they haven't, and they've kind of like discounted it. Because I was one of those people, and I see a lot of those comments online, whether in YouTube comments or Twitter or whatever. And so I was kind of like, man, this game is dumb. Like, I just don't get it. And it was when crossplay came out for the game that my little brothers were like obsessed with the game. And this was at a time where like I was living like 26 hours away from home. And I was kind of distant. I was like, okay, I'm going to try to connect with my younger brothers. Let me download this game again. We'll try it out. And for whatever reason, it just clicked in. And now it's like, I have hundreds of wins, like probably close to like 500-600 hours clocked. It's a great
Wow,
game.
congrats.
But yeah, that's one of the few games that I've come back to, and I'm very glad that I did. So
For me, it
think
was more of a series. So I bought a Vita when it first came out,
mm-hmm.
and then everybody was raving about this game called Persona 4 Golden.
Mm.
And I bought it because everybody's like, oh, this is like the best RPG ever. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll check it out. And I bought it and I played it for like the first 2 hours. And I was like, there is so much dialogue in this game. And I did like one battle and I was like, oh, that was fun. And then it's immediately like, like just a dialogue.
4 hours of dialogue.
I was like, I've done one turn-based battle. I don't know if I have like any interest in this. It's just so much time to put into with me having no idea like what's going on. So I bounced off it and I tried it again, I think like 5 years later on Vita again, and I just didn't want to put the time in again. And then Persona 5 came out, and Joe, who reviewed it for us, Joe Juba, he was raving about it, and I thought it looked really cool. I liked the art style a lot, and it gave you a lot more action up front, a lot more like it has a better hook early on, I think, in terms of like the story. So I was able to power through those opening hours, and then by the time I was finished with the first palace, I was like, this game rules. So I beat Persona 5 in 2017 when it came out. Then I bought a PlayStation TV, if you remember those things. Bought one of those in 2018, played Persona 4 Golden on that because I didn't want to play it on the little Vita, because I'm not a big handheld guy, to be honest. But I played it on the PlayStation TV, loved it, and then Persona 5 Royal came out, and I reviewed it, and obviously I loved it because I gave it a 9.25. So that is a series that I was repelled from pretty early on in my first attempts, but I went back, and now it's one of my favorite RPG series.
Yeah. Hold on, did you say 925?
Believe so, yeah.
That's what I'm giving this podcast.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, what a coincidence.
And oddly enough, I am currently, I think, in the midst of this. If you gentlemen in this podcast were reading our Slack channel, we were talking about Nier Automata, and I brought up how I have bounced off that game a few times, but I want to try it again. So it might be one of those for me, and I don't even know it yet.
I'm going to do it too. I'm taking the plunge. I'm taking the Autonoma plunge.
I think it might be on Game Pass.
Oh,
It is on Game Pass. I know. I downloaded it the other day. I haven't played it yet, though.
Whoa.
you can do it, guys. It'll
You
be
might
fun.
have a follow-up to this.
I remember bouncing pretty hard off Dead Cells too, actually, back in the day. I was
Ooh,
probably even
we're
talking
gonna
to
get in
you about this, man.
trouble.
By who?
By me.
Oh, okay. Well, here we go. Yeah, I remember not liking Dead Cells and like even uninstalling that game because I just kept coming into work, and I think I was complaining to you and Kyle about it. And I uninstalled it. I was like, I'm not gonna play anymore. And then some reason, like I was like, I still want to play the game. And so I re-downloaded it.
So good.
And yeah, that was the thing, is the moment-to-moment gameplay is so fun. And then, just obsessed with it for like 2 weeks and finally beat it. And
Yeah, so
there we go. Changed my
It is,
life.
and I want to make a small segment, just a statement here. In a lot of ways, some of the structuring of Dead Cells is similar to Returnal, so that's a cool way to frame it. If you're not really sure like how that roguelike stuff works,
Sure. Cool.
Interesting.
Dan,
So-
am I still in trouble?
you're not in trouble.
You're just disappointed with me?
No, I'm actually happy. I'm pretty happy about it,
Oh,
actually.
great. Oh, great.
Hey, anybody that gives Dead Cells a try, I'm on my happy. I was making a show of it, okay?
Mm.
All right. One more email. Max writes in and says, first off, I got to do the obligatory long-time listener, first-time writer, and shout out my partner, O, who's always has you guys playing on the background when we game. So that's cool. What up, O? Thanks for listening. My question, what are your favorite cozy games? Things like Animal Crossing, Cozy Grove, that kind of stuff. Stuff you can play that just is calm and makes you feel comfy. It seems like this genre is getting a lot more attention lately. I've always loved Harvest Moon, now Story of Seasons, but my personal fave recently has been smaller indies like Littlewood and Verdant Sky.
A short
wanna-
hike. Sorry, I just had to put that in there. A
Yeah,
short hike.
is great. I loved Short Hike. It's also very short. What you think you can beat it in like 2 hours or something like that?
Yeah, you can, because I did.
Yeah. It's just a really cute. It's a game about a little bird creature who is basically trying to take a hike up the mountain. There's a little bit
Yeah.
more narrative to it than that, but you're collecting these items, and then as you collect them, you get the ability to jump higher, climb higher, so it's
And
nice.
glide like Spyro.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. It's got that really cool gliding mechanic.
And like a stamina-based climbing system, like in Breath of the Wild.
That's a weird one for me because Breath of the Wild can be extremely stressful, but in the quiet moments, that's one of the most relaxing games. Like when you're just like wandering around like a mountain and exploring, that is some of the most relaxing
I totally agree.
I've ever had. But then like it's immediately interrupted by like
A Lionel.
so that's the hard part about that. I have two. Journey is just one of the all-time great relaxation games, and you can't really play it unless you have your 3DS. But Tomodachi Life, I loved that game so much, with like having your friends Mii's come and visit and hang out, and then like there was a huge community surrounding like creating like celebrity Mii's. So I had like Conan O'Brien and Shaquille O'Neal as roommates, and it was such a weird, delightful experience. And I know a lot of people really love Miitopia, which is coming to Switch, but I want Tomodachi Life on Switch because that was just such a weird mobile.
I remember really loving Stardew Valley as well. I mean, they mentioned Story of Seasons, but I fell in love with Stardew Valley, man, when it first came out. I haven't touched it in a few years, but I was thinking about going back to replay it because I know they've added just a ton. That game is so relaxing, just like growing crops and like the biggest, like you just obsessed with like, oh, my blueberry's going to come up. Like you just get so like into like laying out crops and farming. And it's interesting that is, we talked about Returnal being a very stress-filled game, but like there's a lot of release that comes with that. Sometimes it's nice to take a break and play a game where it's like the biggest stress is gardening. When can I get strawberries? Like that's my biggest worry in this game. It's just really relaxing.
Yeah, I mean, my suggestion actually ties back to some of a game that you can actually play socially, as well as being hyper relaxing and involving farming. It's one I've mentioned before in the podcast. It's Farm Together. That has got to be the most stress-free game ever. There's no fail states. You don't have to min-max anything. You just make cute things and farm them. It's ridiculously simple. But and you can play with like 8 friends at the same time. It's such a chill out experience. It's ridiculous. I brought several of my old MMO pals in there to play, and it's like just the most. It's like, wow, we don't have to tank anything. We don't have to try to farm any loot. We don't have to put our game faces on at all. All we're doing, we were puzzled. We were like, wait a minute, how do we win? Well, there's no winning. You just hang out and farm stuff. You farm together.
Dan, I've been looking for another game for my wife and I to play. She got Animal Crossing was like her first console game since like the GameCube, and she loved it. She put like 200 hours into it. Is Farm Together? I've been thinking about Stardew, and then I've heard things about Farm Together. Is that like a good?
Don't wait. Just do it.
Okay. All right.
Take that
pull it up
plunge,
on the
man.
eShop.
Definitely has my seal of approval. You'll have a great time.
Awesome.
You and Reiner were super hot on that game when it first came out.
Well, I think we were a little late to the party, actually. It was out like in early access or something for a long time before we noticed it. But once it launched, then we definitely took notice. It is just like the most chill thing ever. I like the fishing. Like you could fish, you can farm, you can make a soccer field, you can do whatever it's so it's just unbelievably chilled out. I mean, you can't lose. There's never a point where it's like, oh gosh, I'm so worried next year's crop is not going to come in time, or it's just like it doesn't matter. You just keep progressing and making cool, fun stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah. Just like this podcast.
Yes.
Some cool, fun stuff. Thanks to listeners like you who write in emails, podcast@GameInformer.com. Please keep them coming. We love them. That brings us to the last segment of the show, a segment we like to call Get Wrecked, where we recommend some things to check out. We've been doing a lot of Mortal Kombat stuff. We talked about Mortal Kombat earlier. Big Mortal Kombat week for us. Marcus wrote something called the Ultimate Scientific Ranking of every playable Mortal Kombat character. There are 76 different characters on this list. It's insane how big this list is. I recommend checking it out. Number 2 on that list, Brian, do you know who it is?
Sub-Zero.
That's right. So to find out who's number 1, go look at the list.
I gotta find out right now.
Yeah, you can probably
Number
guess who it is.
7 will shock you.
Oh
Just get on
boy,
over there and find out who number 1 is.
that's right. Dan, what about you? Want to recommend anything?
What's up? Get freaking wrecked, crew. All right. Yeah. All right. I would say, based on my experience with Returnal, it's going to be a big talker this year. So head over to the site, check out my review and accompanying material on the website. That's got to be my pitch for this week.
Returnal. Keep returning. Alex.
Hello. My Get Wrecked recommendation is going to be Marcus's Before Your Eyes review. That came out earlier in the month, I think about a week or 2 ago. But if you haven't, it's kind of not to be cheesy, but it's opened my eyes to the game Before Your Eyes, and I'm planning to play it now. So the review is great. Go check it out on the site. And also, in case, just so we don't forget, we are hiring a junior developer, and we've got a post on the site about that people should go check out.
Yeah, go check that out. If you're into developing things, we can use you.
Yeah.
And your dad has the same first name as you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be named Alex, right?
Mhm.
Brian, what about you? Anything to recommend?
Kimberly Wallace, our features editor. She has a huge piece about Supergiant games in the magazine that is currently out, but she's been putting individual stories up on our website about different Supergiant games. So there's one about Transistor, there's one about Bastion, and they're all super fascinating reads about like behind the scenes stories and like how these beloved titles that Supergiant Games puts out came to be. Super interesting reads.
Also, shout out to our design team, because that feature in the magazine looked great on top of Kim, knocking it out of the park.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You can read the whole Supergiant. You read the piece on Supergiant itself in the magazine. Is a good point. Yeah, but then there's additional call-out stories that are online.
Yep.
That are also worth reading. So go both places and read them all. Got to read them all.
You have a favorite Supergiant game, Ben?
Good question. I'm one of those weirdos who really likes Pyre.
Yeah.
Would be my favorite.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hades is my favorite, but Pyre is underrated.
Yeah, I think Pyre gets overlooked. So a lot of people, they're all great. I think I enjoyed my time with all of them. But yeah, Hades is maybe number 2 at this point.
You're a Hades guy.
Yeah, Hades is definitely number 1. And then I to be honest, I haven't played Pyre, but Bastion's probably number 2 for me. I didn't love Transistor. That's okay.
Fair enough.
I like the combat system of Transistor, but I am coming around on Hades more and more as I play it.
Keep playing it, man.
I got to get back to it.
The only way to win.
I bounced off of it. Maybe I'll come back and love it more.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, while you do that, we've got to end the show. So thank you for watching or listening to this episode of the GI Show. Please like and subscribe. Subscribe to the magazine. We always appreciate that. But whatever you do, come back next week. Until then, everybody, game on.